Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
PD Beats here from Popternative, speaking to Andrea Riseborough about To Leslie, available on digital and demand today. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I mean, it's pretty crazy because you've worked in so many genres, so many stories. It is really all storytelling, right? It's just different tones and everything. Or do you have a different mindset depending on To Leslie, Birdman? Is it different mindsets or is it all storytelling for you?
I think it's all storytelling, really, isn't it? Whether it's for me, I'm sure everybody approaches it differently, but I think whether you're doing theatre to a very, very small number of people or thousands of people, or you're doing something that's very intimate in independent cinema, or you're doing something that's a studio film, that the key is to sort of find the common denominator is the truth, if you know what I mean, to find some sort of truth in it, and commitment, I suppose. So yes, so very similar from the inside.
Absolutely. It's been a journey with To Leslie and the movie kind of getting out to the masses. I mean, it does South by Southwest. You do some interviews for that. People get to see it. Now it's available for a wider audience. What's that been like for you, where people can see these characters finally that are just going through so much in this film, and more people kind of every kind of month or so are able to kind of see what you've been working on with this film?
I think particularly with To Leslie, with this film, the amount of incredibly moving, wonderful conversations I've had with people after they've seen it has just been... I haven't really had that experience before. I haven't talked to anybody who hasn't said, I've either been in Leslie's position or been around somebody, orbited somebody like her, and talked about how much it's affected them really deeply. Yeah. So I think in that way, this one's unique, really unique. It sort of goes beyond in many ways it goes beyond the love of a film, because the story is so relevant to really every one of us. There's so many people in life who struggle with addiction, and every one of us has a relationship to one of those people. And if you think about the ripples of how many people that touches, it's quite extraordinary. So I've had some incredible conversations with people.
That, on top with the fact that I find very interesting, is absolutely addiction, alcoholism, and everything. And just the performances in this are just unbelievable. You do such an amazing job. Owen, who I've interviewed before, does such an amazing job in this. During the pandemic, self-reflection, soul-searching, I feel like was like a big theme, you know what I mean? Because that's what we were doing for like 3 years, because we had the time to do so and everything. So I feel like movies like To Leslie also become more relatable to the audience instantly because of that aspect of it. Did you ever think about that at all as well? The self-reflection, soul-searching component?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I haven't thought about that in terms of from an audience perspective, but I think you're right. I think for so many reasons, it was a film that had to be made. We made it at the height of the pandemic. It was really, really worrying. It was really scary here in LA at the time. We made it in LA for Texas, so we were already trying to, in every way, create the production in a way that it authentically felt Texan, and that was a huge feat in of itself. We also shot it in 19 days, and we shot it on film, which in the middle of the pandemic seemed nigh on impossible in terms of, the difficulty in processing it. Yes. The many hoops that you now have to jump through shooting on film. But I'm so happy we did, because I think what it afforded us was this really intimate relationship with Leslie, particularly a character who you might at arm's length be able to muster quite a lot of judgment about, but instead it's more like we spend time with her, and the film, it being shot on film gives us that in so many ways that are kind of like inexplicable.
That was an incredible way of looking at it, by the way. Like, just that we spent time with her through that. I didn't even think about it that way. That is incredible observation. That's so true. It's like you really are kind of like spending time. You're really kind of immersed with like the storylines of Leslie.
It is immersive. Yeah, it is immersive. makes it less of a sort of moralistic. There aren't great swells of music that make you feel one way or another, where you feel sort of slightly sullied and manipulated by the film. This is the terribly sad part. Get the tissues out.
Yeah.
There's nothing. The film in every way resists. I think what we just unfortunately see a lot of, which is
I agree with you.
Spoon-fed filmmaking.
This was also for you in terms of, how you spoke, how you look. This was a transformation, basically, right? Like, you're reading the script for this, and then there's a lot of kind of hair and makeup and how Leslie speaks and everything. Was the transformation like, was it more than you expected, or were you reading the character for this? Because I find that interesting, right? You're reading the script, right? And you're looking at what's going to happen. And then it actually kind of like, you talk to like the directors and writers about like what it's going to look like and everything. Like, those are two different kind of journeys, I feel like, right?
It's funny. I've already talked about this morning once, because you can imagine we're doing back-to-back stuff. And and I hadn't actually thought about it before this morning. But when I read a script, I rarely feel any distance from the character if it's something that I'm responding to.
Yeah.
So instantly, I don't even have the thought of, oh goodness, this is very far away from me as a human being, if you know what I mean. I just kind of, and in the way that a viewer connects with a film, you just feel very connected to, and that's the extraordinary power of film, you feel very connected to characters you just otherwise perhaps could not have empathy for, because you're having a very specific experience from their point of view. And in reading a script, that's the sort of the same way that I feel if I'm connecting with it. So I didn't really ever think about there being any difference between Leslie and I, but I also don't particularly think until I look back, I don't particularly think about there being massive differences between, obviously playing Margaret Thatcher, that was quite a big difference from myself, but that happened very early on, and it was something I did that when I was in my 20s, and I felt very like any human in so many ways, as much as I absolutely detested that woman's politics and all that she reigned on the world. Her experience is very relatable in so many ways, because there's some part of every human experience that's relatable, isn't there? Whether you click against it or not. So
we're getting very deep and philosophical, but I feel like this always happens with those questions in my show these days, Andrea, because I'm interested in mindsets, right? Like I always thought that's so interesting.
Here's something interesting. Actually, there wasn't any hair and makeup with Leslie, and there wasn't any. It was just, her physicality just sort of manifested as it did. She's a little like, when I look back at it now, when I see her moving around, I can see that she's a little bit like a scavenger physically.
Yeah.
Or she has.
I just assumed because it just was such a big transformation, right? So.
But I think if you were reaching, perhaps, I don't know, if I was reaching for that from the outside in, it might not be as valuable or as authentic as going from the inside out, if that makes any sense. Oh
no, absolutely. No, it's so well said. You're at a time like are you getting used to the story? Because you're a storyteller. Andrea Riseborough is a storyteller. That's what you do. Are you getting used to this thing where, you go in, you do your job, you film something, you wrap, and then release dates come out and it's kind of out of your hands? I mean, you're at a point now where a couple of your projects are kind of coming out at the same time, with this one's around available digital on demand, to Leslie, Matilda the Musical and everything. Like, are you getting used to that? Because I always feel like that's such an interesting thing, where there's these like vehicles of waves of promotion where you work on it, you wait, oh look, this is getting released this day, and then it's like, oh look, next week this is coming out. Like, are you used to that a little bit?
Certainly, and I mean, I've been doing it 20 years now, so it feels, which has gone by so quickly, it seems, but it feels like a totally natural process of closure in a way. It almost feels like, an exorcism or some sort of catharsis. By the time you share it with the world, then you get to really understand what it was, not just for you, but for other people. And that's a really profound experience, I think, because you, of course, have no relationship to that at the time. I think when I was shooting something, if I were to have a relationship about how it was going to affect the audience, I would probably do the audience a great disservice, because really my only job is just to be inside of it and to experience it, without trying to manipulate their view of my character in any way.
Totally.
Yeah, but it's a really interesting experience, and it's funny, at the minute, Matilda, which is a musical, the Netflix Christmas Day extravaganza, which is so beautiful, and then this To Leslie, which is an independent film shot on film in 19 days. Like I said, really a sort of a different kind of feat in many ways, and talking about one and then the other is a huge sort of energy shift, basically. And I've been talking about both in The Same Day Often and Amsterdam and Please Baby Please, and they're all just very, very different movies. But especially To Leslie and Matilda, because To Leslie's about a woman who wins the lottery and becomes homeless and is an alcoholic. Yes. And Matilda is about, I play one of the many villains in Matilda, but I play a mother, Mrs. Wormwood, and Mrs. Wormwood is an all singing, all dancing extravaganza of a human who is really only interested in what time a salsa class is and how many frills she has in her skirt. Mm-hmm. It's just completely different.
And there was hair and makeup in that one, right?
I cannot tell you how much hair and makeup there was in that one. Yeah, it was like a whole extra person that was living on my head. Yeah.
I had to go with that segue, but another thing too, and then Birdman is like one of my favorite movies of all time. Like I love that movie so much, but till this day, like I still don't like that is because genre bending is such a big thing, right? And that is like till this day, it's like, is it a comedy? Is it a drama? Because like there's some suspense. Like what is that movie? Like I love it. You know what I mean?
All of the wonderful filmmakers do that though, don't they? They transcend any sort of genre. Like
that movie is crazy. That movie is so crazy. I love that movie.
Yeah. And Alejandro's new film is absolutely extraordinary as well.
Bardo, yep.
It's just, I think, so brave and incredible, and something that we'll look back on and really, really feel fortunate to have in the canon of cinema. Yeah. And filmmakers like Iñárritu and Tarkovsky and Kubrick, who are those, they just transcend genre.
There's those filmmakers that you like wait patiently and like follow social media to see, okay, what's the next project, right? And you're like, you're in every time, right?
Yeah. Alejandro is absolutely. Yeah, he's amazing.
Which is
as is David O. Russell is just, I think the expectations around David's projects are so high because you're really not sure which direction, what he's been exploring. And normally when it comes out, he's been exploring it already for 15 years, so it's really interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Before we wrap up quickly, getting back to To Leslie, because people are going to be able to watch it on digital on demand, Andrea, they get a chance to watch it. What are you hoping they get out of it takeaway wise?
I think the unique thing about the film, and this is what attracts me to really any film, mm-hmm. in a sense, or any play in a sense, is that we get to experience a human's experience without it being a redemption song or a moralistic tale or any sort of great judgment.
Yeah.
And that the character is not being held to any standards of society, such as gender or how good or bad of a parent they are, which clearly in this particular film, Leslie struggles with immensely and is unable to parent her child. Yet he's the one thing that she loves more than anything in the world. Mm-hmm. And so just, I hope that they're able to spend time with the character.
Yeah.
And that whatever they get from that,
mm-hmm. Like you said in the middle of the interview, which I loved, right? You get to spend time with Leslie. Absolutely.
Because she's funny and vivacious, and she's addictive, as well as being brash and cruel and self-pitying. She's also this wild horse who's sort of untamable. And I think for so many of us, we relate to her perspective, which is that it's the world that's broken, not her.
Yep. That's so well said. Yep.
Just something we can all relate to. And we all feel that at some point in life,
Absolutely.
God,
no,
wish the
absolutely.
system wasn't so broken.
And they could see it on digital on demand too, Leslie. Andrea, honor and privilege to speak with you. Thank you so much for coming on Popternative.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Andrea and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.